I mean, and it's sort of.
I'm so sorry.
He just started. I don't know. if he did it.
I bet you. Yeah.
It just says legend.
He's great.
She's good.
Yeah, she better be.
Yeah, killer too.
Okay, with me.
I think she's gonna appear remotely.
Interesting.
I go get that. But that's like a person.
My phone is terrible. Are those all the agendas? Are those all the agendas?
Sure.
Yeah. Amanda, is there an extra? Thank you. What's that? Is there an extra? Sure.
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
Carrie. How you doing? Good?
Yeah, she's here. She's got numbers. Are we?
Sits on the other one's lap.
Another one, please. You want another one, Carolyn?
I want one, I don't know.
There it is. Right?
What year is your Beamer? What year is your Beamer?
Oh, two. I'm just be quiet.
All right.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Please be quiet in your conference. Just can't see that.
Feeling you might need to hold off just because Chambers is not unmuting properly, so IT's running up.
We're used to that.
It's only that easy to move people.
Yeah. I got that.
Strategically. Pick the seat.
Facebook for me, for the. Yeah. I got There was, that was signed in April.
I watched YouTube.
Should bring your bodyguard with you?
He's here.
Oh.
I'll second.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't yell that.
I thought you moved.
I didn't see you.
All right. No. I can talk to you.
Especially when it deals with.
Deep energy. Let's see, I used to. I'm that crazy. I used to ride them all. I was good at heights. For me, that's sick of it. On my own.
86. Yeah.
Last time I went to Hammond Service, that's right, I watched.
That's not fun either after a while. What do you come?
I only go if somebody to ride with somebody. Ride everything. I can't.
I've been banned.
Used to ride the bike.
It is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like.
I'm sure. If you have a physical one too. Because I
I think somebody stole mine. You had one, I had one. I think somebody stole mine.
things in there.
Must've been a tennis player.
They have a system. I don't always understand it.
I don't think this day.
But I was gonna say they do what they're doing.
What?
Yeah.
I'm just nuts.
That's.
I will. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Edible.
There ain't no hair on bullfrog's toes. That's why it's so shiny.
I was just gonna say something. Yeah, there's. Like his fruits, potato berry.
Well, they fired their guts. That's.
They also wanted to work on a trail.
Are they gonna share? Yep.
All fair, all way up.
Yeah. Yeah. She did this.
Right.
Systems.
Oh, I got the part five meetings are killing me. They're quitting for me today and there's no parking.
We don't just keep talking about it.
I know you get up, you gotta like.
Thought you were, I thought that was you.
Oh, she should.
You should.
Oh, very good, thank you.
Any morning.
And with that, and I and you.
You learn a little bit better.
So you're out.
The IT fixer.
Mhm.
Yeah, wherever in the city.
Yeah.
I'm trying to-
I think she does, yeah.
I'm doing.
Should he?
Right.
Lynn and Grace.
On your neck.
A couple times.
Yes.
Staring over in that neighborhood where.
Hey Keith, I have volume now. I don't know if you did anything, but there's audio now.
Okay.
You want me to say?
I don't know if you.
Elaine, what, Amanda has the ability to build. Oh, Amanda has it. Okay,
Or selling range silo, oh, that was,
thank you.
I didn't realize it was like 4,000 or 5,000. Yeah.
Yeah, Elaine, we're all set too. We're live on YouTube, so whenever you're ready.
All right, I'd like to call the Ways and Means Committee meeting to order. And first, in a matter of business is to approve the April 16th, 2024 minutes.
Move it.
I can get a second.
Okay, any issues? No, where's Brian?
He just left the answers wrong.
Okay, all right, all in favor? Okay. We're to start the meeting, I think, with a presentation from Finance Director, our Budget Director, kind of giving the budget update in terms of how the 23 budget performed, and some general early discussion about 24 and perhaps beyond. So we did talk about in the beginning of the Ways and Means meeting here of really trying to get some kind of updated information, so I appreciate you two going forward and giving us an idea about 23 and then some discussion on our 24 budget.
Good, they won't see you.
Get with the sport car. You know.
Amanda, can you put the presentation up?
Football game, on Monday night game, you got.
Do you see it, Lynn? It's on the screen.
No,
Oh, yeah.
No.
Hang on a sec.
this works.
There.
There it is.
There you go.
Okay, so we figured we'd start with a little bit of background. There are a lot of legislators who are a little bit new to budget and maybe what kind of comprises the operations of it. So this first slide is actually from the budget presentation. And this is a picture for you to see where do our revenues come from. You can see the biggest piece of the pie there is the property tax levy that we impose each year. The next biggest pie in the red would be the sales tax revenue that we get each year. After that, you have the orange pie, that's the federal aid, and I would say probably at least 90% of that is due to social services. They are the biggest receivers of federal aid. Other people have some small grants, but they have a lot of funding for their mandated programs. This is federal aid. And then we have the state aid, that a lot of departments have that. Health department has a lot of that, DSS again. The fees in the green, a lot of that probably is actually like mental health. If you get a lot of revenue from Medicaid or maybe some fees, but most departments are small fees that we charge the users, but that's where like your motor vehicle revenue would go. Kind of just anything that's not state or federal. Next slide. This is a breakdown again of the budget of the expenditures that we had, and the blue pie, piece of the pie there, that's the salaries for the staff that we have, and this is all for the general fund. Next to it, the next piece is the fringe benefits. So those two together would be the cost for our personnel who work for the county. There's a couple small slices for the equipment expenditures, the college, the contribution that we have to make that as a sponsor. Then we have Medicaid, we have broken out separately because it's such a substantial cost that is in the social services budget, $14 million just by itself. We have a small chunk for debt service and our bonds. We have the transfer to the highway fund. That's how we fund the highway. We levy the taxes in the A fund, and then we move that money over to the highway for their operations during the year. And where we have other, that would be all of your other expenditures. Most departments who have their contracts, their supplies, a large portion of that would be the other social services programs that are not broken out separately, your foster care, your public assistance, all the operations at the jail besides their staff. That'd be another large one that we would have there too. So that comprises everything else that we have. Next slide. So this is a historical view for you of the fund balances on the top at the year end since 2018. And you can see we started about $20 million there, almost 21 million. It dipped some down to 18 million for 19 and 20. And it starts to come up a little bit after COVID. So we were lucky that we didn't have a huge drop from COVID, even though we did have a lot of scares there. We got some revenues back and the sales tax started picking up. So that's really why we go up in 21 and then we continue to go up in 22 because we're getting large amounts of sales tax that were not budgeted. But then for 23, we're having a large drop. And that's not all just due to operations, because what kind of goes hand in hand with that is on the bottom part of the sheet, that when you set funds aside from your fund balance to put to the next year's budget, we actually have to separate that out because we're basically saying this isn't part of an unappropriated fund balance anymore. You're planning on using it next year. So the auditors make us set it aside out of the fund balance. So it can only be used for that. So you can kind of see if you go down on the bottom there with the A, it starts in 18. The money going towards the budget every year, 838,954, 1.1 million, 2 million, 3 million, and then $7 million in last year's budget. I would not be as concerned about the D and the DMs. They kind of go up and down a little bit. We kind of use them to balance things, but like I said, the funding for the highway fund is in that A fund. So if our highway expenditures go up, if costs go up, we're going to have to levy more taxes to give them money. So I kind of wanted to show this depiction that one of the reasons there's a stark drop from the 25 to 17 wasn't just the operations of 23. It's also the fact that we are setting a big chunk of this money aside in the budget that we passed for 2024.
When I'm saying the fund balance use that you have to subtract it from the balance. The auditors tell you.
Yeah,
get it
there's a
from-
separate account that says appropriated for next year's budget. That's basically what it is, because you've already said, I'm using it next year. That was the budget that we passed with the expenditures and the revenues. You had to have that money to make a balance instead of raising property taxes, but we'll kind of get to that. So the next slide, Amanda. So this is just a graphical depiction that I actually had from the budget, that it shows over time the use of the fund balance. The black line would be the A fund, the gray is the D, and the red is the DM fund. So it just kind of showed you, I mean, in the past, we had a year that it was much higher, and that could have been, I think that was a year that we may have had an unusual, a new debt come on, and we may have also had a huge increase in retirement. But it did not actually end up having a huge, but that's back to 13. I didn't even have those fund balance. I mean, that's a long time ago. That happened over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So you can see it was kind of creeping up but it really went up last year in 24. Next slide, Amanda. This is a graph of the sales tax, how it's performed compared to the budget. And I think like, I've been accused by our Ways and Means Director that I was very conservative in budgeting the sales tax in some of those prior years, but you can see there were huge anomalies in the gray bar, how it came in much higher than the yellow. Actually, when COVID hit in 20, we decreased the sales tax budget for 21 because during 20, our sales tax was taking a huge dive. And it really had to do with the adjustments that had not gotten passed through to us. So in the end, luckily, 20 kind of held with the budget, and then 21 was way above the budget, and so was 22. 23 is on the same thing, but you can see the actuals now are really leveling off. I did increase the budget though for 24 along the same incline there, about 3% over the last couple of years if you try and make a straight line there. But we're not gonna be way above it anymore. It's definitely flattening. Next slide. This is actually a slide that I stole from an ISAC presentation. I thought it was a very nice depiction of the sales tax over time. The red line is New York City. The blue is the whole rest of the state. And when you zoom in to around 2020, you can see the blue took a dip for sure. New York City crashed. And then when it came back up, everybody's gone up. New York City is still staying up some, but it is dropping for 22 for rest of state, and it's dropping again. So I think I just want to kind of show out, this is not just a Cayuga County thing. It's kind of a statewide thing that's happening with the sales tax. So it's really the way that the economy is driving at this point. I mean, gas prices all factor into this. I mean, lots of things factor into this, right? I mean, so it's not just consumer, how much they're using goods, but it's also the price of goods that they're buying. Next slide. This is a depiction of the tax levy increases and well, actually the amount. So the increase would be the difference in the bars. And it's showing how we really have not had much of an increase here, even though we've had an extremely high increases in the cost of living, inflation, salary increases, retirement contribution. All of these have gone up significantly in the last couple of years. I mean, we all know how much inflation has gone up, but our tax levy really did not go up correspondingly. And we had a bunch of new contracts for unions, and we really did not keep up with it. So this is just to show you, if you said, Lynn, how much money can we raise with a tax levy increase based on what our current property tax level is? So with 2%, you get about 870,000, 3%, 1.3, 4%, 1.7. So it will be helpful for us to get that, in coming budgets so we can cover these operations. But it's certainly, if you're $5 million short, you're gonna have to raise taxes 8% to make it all up in 1 year. So, we're still gonna have to use our fund balance some for operations, even if we can raise taxes. And that's right.
That doesn't, we said those for last.
Okay, yeah. So then Grace is gonna give you a little bit more projection of the actual 24, because right now we have a budget passed for the A fund that's supposed to use about $7 million. So we're looking to see, okay, how are we gonna perform in 24? How much do we think that will be?
Sure.
Do you mind, Lynn,
Yes.
going back to that one slide with the bar, just see this up?
Which one, Aileen?
That one,
The tax levy?
just
Yeah.
sort of. 'Cause I don't know if people got a good chance to look at it, but it does show that we've stayed really steady with tax increases.
Right.
Over time.
Right.
And it's like, that's a very good picture to have, to say that we've never been real volatile with crazy raising.
And I just wanted to ask you about the issue when you talk about compounding. So if you don't raise or you raise by a small amount, then the compounding effect of that is.
Well, once you get it into the base, right? If you get
Mhm.
200,000 raised in the base, it's automatically there then the next year and the next year and the next year. And then, so that doesn't take away every time. So having a gradual increase in it is kind of what you do to keep up with your expenditures. And we really haven't been doing that. I mean, the tax levy has not kept up with the expenditures. It was okay when the sales tax came in way ahead. And it could kind of make up for that, but we did have, some much larger than usual union contracts. I mean, we absolutely have. I mean, can't deny that. So I mean, that's not gonna help you be able to pay for that is the problem. So I mean, we have to think about how do we pay for such large increases, and we're using the fund balance. instead of any revenue sources that we have.
So I'm gonna give a little bit of an update on some 2024 projections. Elaine asked us to do this, so it is kind of early in the year yet. But there are some accounts that kind of are alarming or that we're kind of looking at now. So the first one is our sales tax projection. I did send the sales tax out, the report out for May, and you could see that through May, we're down 1.9%. So basically what I did here was I just said, okay, let's see where we're at if the rest of the year we come in exactly like last year. And if we do that, you can see that we're gonna be $1.4 million under budget for sales tax revenue. Amanda, next
When you
budget, or
say
next,
1.4% down,
1.4 million
0.4 million, where?
under budget,
Buildings, yeah.
yes. The next slide shows projected interest earnings. Here you can see this is good news, actually. Working with we've been working closely, I've been working closely, Dave, with the New York class, putting some of the money into higher interest bearing accounts. The fact that we've had some extra money due to ARPA to put into those accounts to earn some extra interest has been beneficial to us. So you can see, I'm projecting that we'll be about 700,000 over budget in interest revenue. Hoping that that could be even a little bit higher, but, not 100% sure. The only thing is that banks right now are talking about interest rates going down. We're hoping we can get through most of the year with where they're at, but, you know, we can't control what the interest rates are gonna do. Next slide. Here is the federal inmate revenue. I did email Sheriff Skank on this. And as you can see, starting with the end of last year and going into this year, the revenue is down quite a bit. So we are projecting to be under budget by 511,000. Now, he did actually try to lower the budget to about 800,000 this year. And Lynn, was being optimistic. We're hoping that maybe we would, bounce back from that, but we're not. But one of the things Brian did say was that he is working with Tompkins County and they're hoping to bring about 30 inmates from there. So that won't affect this account, but that revenue will go into another account that we don't have a budget in. So it would be an offset to this loss. Next slide. This you've heard about over and over again. Our safety net, the main area here that we're concerned with is obviously the homelessness. That's still a problem. As you can see, our hotels and motel costs, we are projecting to be over budget by about 866,000.
Even though you increased it.
Even though we did increase, that's with an increase in the budget from 23 to 24. And if you look, you can see the revenue. Safety net is a very low reimbursed program. So even though the expenditures are going up, the revenue doesn't go up nearly as much. We get a 29%. So this is an area that, I know Christine's they're always looking at trying to control those. So the next slide, Amanda, is our OCFS placements. This is DSS, and this is a very costly expense when we get even one child placed. Currently, there are 4 kids placed in OCFS placements. So it is driving this number up. You can see last year we were over budget by 640,000. And we weren't aware of these kids, I think, when we did the budget for 24. So obviously the budget you can see wasn't really increased. So we're looking at being about 350,000 over budget in this area.
You weren't aware because they're in the state OCFS custody, not the county's custody.
Yes, and I think a lot of them were placed later in the year.
I probably should have been aware. I mean, I did that budget. I mean, we don't know of them. I get emails sent from people from the state that has a roster, and
Right, so we
It's
are,
not the most fluid information getting for sure. Like you said, they're not in our custody. We don't know.
right, so we are communicating more and more with
Yes, for
DSS to just kind of keep track of what kids are going in, how many kids are there.
I mean, we
and
really
how
only
many
had-
kids Dropping
No kids
for a long
for
time.
several years, and then we had one. So this was a shock. I mean, so I would have never thought that, you know, and so even if someone in, if it's a short placement, it's not so bad. They're staying longer. We talked to one of the people, Sherry Bianco was just saying, they've had several kids, they're very hard to place in other placements. So, I mean.
They
it
have a
is-
couple that they may be stepping down, but I think it's still, it might be a slight savings, but still
It's
costly.
100% our costs.
Yes. Yep. The next slide is the mental health projected forensic competency restoration. As you can see, the original budget was 125,000 and the projected expense here is 1.5 million, which means we'll be over budget by 1,375,000. So this is where she already did ask for 600,000 in the fund balance. But based on this slide, you can see that the projection shows that she'll probably be coming back and looking for more.
Can I ask a question? I mean, why is the reason, or what is the reason that we missed the mark so much? I don't need to be.
Well, the last people didn't get placed till near the end of the year when we were doing the budget. And again, I think there's a lot of uncertainty of how long they actually serve in the facility,
Right.
right? And again, they don't have control over it.
There's
The
no
person's getting placed, I think, by the court. I mean, yeah, so I mean, the mental health department can't just say, oh, I think they're good, why don't you let them out now? Again, those placements came near the end of the year. And they've had people in and out, one or two, the same type of thing, and a lot of times we go over that count, but not by that amount of money, you know? It might go over by 100,000 or another year, then she has nobody. So again, if you look over time, this is a terrible anomaly that's hitting. I mean, it's very unusual.
And if you had budgeted for the worst case scenario and it didn't happen, you
Oh,
would have
I mean,
increased the
yeah, you
tax.
would-
you would-
Right, and I did talk with Lauren, one came out and then one went right back in. And she is hoping, I think, my understanding is after so long, the cases will expire, so then they're no longer responsible for paying. So she's hoping that a couple of them, that'll happen to a couple of them throughout by the end of the year. So hopefully, you know, that cost will go down, but
They'll expire, they just won't.
yeah,
Yeah.
I hate using that. I'm
Yeah,
not.
that's-
Well, maybe if they haven't been restored after a certain amount of time and it
Right.
becomes a permanent placement,
Yes.
then the
gotcha,
state is
gotcha.
taking them probably.
So the next slide is basically kind of a summary of the listed projections that I just talked about. So as you can see with just those 6 areas, you know, we're looking to be under budget by 3.6 million. Or over budget, I'm sorry, by 3.6 million. And, you know, where Lynn mentioned, you know, the $7 million that we use in the 2024, well, here's 3.6 million of it already. You know, that we're.
In addition to it?
Well, no,
I
we're
mean,
just saying that.
If we normally budget 7 and you say, well, sometimes we use
Yeah,
half of
yeah.
that because people are under in their salaries, they're under in their fringes, they have vacancies. Most people don't spend up to the dollar and their 0.4, and hopefully some people's revenues come in better, not just, you know, the interest, right? There will be other accounts that come in and you add them all up, it adds up. So if I said it was gonna be 300 million out of 7 million, then you factor this in for some really unusual. You know, it's not good when the sales tax doesn't hit the budget. You know, there's only been 1 year in probably the last 10 that it hasn't, but it happens, right? And when you take the risk to raise it, it can happen. So, you know, as we get to the next slide, now we're gonna kind of see, what is all this gonna do to the fund balance when we look at it?
So the
Yeah.
the last slide I have is just to kind of bring up that there are other high-risk areas. Again, like I said in the beginning, it is early in the year. So when we come back and do a presentation in July, I think we'll get a better picture. We'll have half a year. So, you know, obviously DSS foster care is always a risk there. These are all mandated services. The assigned counsel for public defender's office, and we're also looking at the center-based tuition for 3 to 5.
When you say high-risk areas, you're talking about fluctuation affecting the budget.
Right, there's no
Yeah.
control over those,
Right,
obviously.
they're mandated
They're
services
mandated
that can have
services.
large expenditures that we really can't control. So we have to watch them. I mean, they're
Mhm.
larger dollar amounts in the budget that we can't control very well ourselves. You know, it's whoever walks in and needs a service. They can
Maybe these are the areas that we could be hurt further if it doesn't.
And there
Or they
could be others,
okay.
or there
They
could be
could be
okay.
okay. You know,
I mean,
you could
like-
have savings there
Yeah.
because they're, again, they're big dollar amounts. You save $500,000 on something that's budgeted at 5 million.
Right.
You know, it can happen. I mean, it.
Yep.
you
I mean, I
it can
know-
happen.
Looking at the assigned council in 3 to 5, I mean, right now, it looks like, you know, we could be on target where we are with budget, but you just, like Lynn said, you just don't know. So these are just high risk areas because there's no control. You don't know what, you know, foster care, you don't know what cases are gonna come in, you know, so.
Reason to sort of keep track of things
Mhm.
throughout the
So
year.
these, yes, these will be accounts that will definitely, you know.
Right. Okay, the next slide. So kind of what, you know, I'm projecting is that if we kind of continue with this budget gap, I'd say, the structural budget gap. You know, we have to use $7 million of the fund balance, say we can make a little improvement. But you know, next year salaries are gonna go up, fringe benefits always go up along with them. Prices go up, so I keep using $6 million of the fund balance. By the end of 24, it could be at 15 million because we gotta set aside another 6, right, for the 25 budget. Do the same thing after the 25 budget. We gotta set 6 million aside again for 26. By the time you get down to 26, the unappropriated fund balance could be $4 million. And our range is between right now is 16 to 24 million dollars. It's based on the policy we passed quite a number of years ago to say it should be 10 to 15% of our total revenues. So obviously the number changes every year as you know, time goes on and revenues all go up. So I mean, I think what we're trying to address here and bring to your attention is that, you know, we have a structural deficit and we really shouldn't wait to start seeing what we can do till we're in the 25 budget. That we can take some actions now to try and have the performance of 24 end up better, right? Like where we can control things, because Gracious went over a lot of things that we have no control over. We can't influence those. I mean, you know, even foster care accounts, I can have the same number of kids get in place. All of their rates have gone up because they're paying all their people more money. All of their supplies cost more money, everything. So I mean, the inflation that's, you know, been going on for the last 2 or 3 years, I think is really coming out in our operations. And we haven't raised it, you know, I always like money. I know it's not a popular thing to raise taxes, but we have to provide our services. And that's one of our main revenue sources at the county is your property tax base or your sales tax. Can't really change the other ones very much. You know, a lot of we do the best we can in social services and the health department and mental health and claiming everything we can. We really try to do our best at training, even claiming, phone bills, copiers, supplies, to grants. And, you know, to try and do our best, but you can only go so far with that. A lot of our federal funding, it's capped in social services. Very little of it is open-ended federal aid. So when the expenses keep going up, we're not pulling down any more money on the federal side. And with the changes, you know, the state is they're using all their ARPA money up. Just like we are, the deadlines are gonna be coming and a lot of this money that people have been getting extra is gonna be getting cut off because they're not gonna have it either. So, you know, we've all been kind of in a
You guys can.
good period, I guess, to be able to spend and be able to buy a lot of things and, you know, having ARPA money, and we've done a lot of important things with them, repairing a lot of things and fixing a lot of things that would have been county money, so that's all good. But I think we have to see that it's gonna start drying up. We're not gonna be able to just turn to this extra money we have.
So is it reasonable to think about, we continued to do what we've been doing, which is keeping that tax levy low or zero? That if we continued that, we would get to a point eventually where to actually pay expenses, we would have to zoom taxes to a point where it would hurt. Our constituents, our homeowners would feel this. So we need to.
Stir the cap on.
Well, there's a cap, but you can pass the resolution to lower the cap whenever you want to. And other counties have, and it's 2% or the tax cap calculation, which I have to do a calculation every year. I get information from Jenny, and it basically has a lot of things to do with different assessment values, pilots, some other different factors that all go into it. So normally it's been in the high threes. 3.7, 3.6 could actually be the tax cap, and you would not have to be actually going over it.
Cause that's rollover?
Some of it's rollover, but a lot of it has to do with assessment. Like I said, if you have more people building properties in Cayuga County and you can spread your tax levy over more people, then no person's is going up by more than 2%. That's part of some of the theory, right? Like, is that the idea? Because, so it has to do with new build. I mean, we get a lot of different numbers, the college, it has a lot of like ins and outs. But that is how it's kind of comes out. So it's not really a hard to. It could be lower than that. It was lower a bunch of years when inflation was really low. You couldn't even raise the taxes by 2% without going over the cap. And that affected us in some of those years when it was staying so low. I mean, the inflation was really low. It was the rate of inflation or 2%. So you had a much lower, I mean, so I think we're just trying to bring to your attention that the budget that was passed has a big structural deficit in it. And if we can't try and squeeze it together, the fund balance will be gone, or you'll be right. I mean, before you even got to 26, you'd be having to have a tax levy of probably 7-8% to try and get those expenditures. Is really what we want to kind of bring to your attention. Because the 24 budget could perform okay within the guidelines that it's been structured, but that's not good for our future. Yeah, I guess is what we kind of wanted to bring out. It's not just about saying, but we really actually have a couple accounts that are very at risk for 24. That could get closer to using the whole, And when you really look at things, mostly we have a lot of small departments. They have mostly just employees. They don't have a lot of expenditures, but it all adds together, right? It all in the end comes together. And some of those smaller departments may be less mandated than the large departments that actually drive the costs. But we're gonna have to spend the money there, or you have more legal responsibilities for taking care of families or taking care of children that you can't just not spend the money there. So just want to get you in your thoughts to start, pondering options. You have to think about them instead of suddenly being the budget time and being like, we have 2 weeks to decide this, Aileen. This is giving you a lot more time and thought to think about it. Any questions? Thank you.
Very appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, both putting this out in front and letting us kind of digest this so we can take a proactive approach. The point you made, Heidi, about raising taxes, like at this point with the structural deficit that has been solidified at this point. That's the hardest thing for me, is thought of raising taxes just to keep the lights on, so to speak. That is a shame, right? So we don't have anything more to offer our residents. If we don't have anything like a new department that's going to make their lives or impact them in some way, if we're just having to raise taxes just to keep up, that's a shame. So it's going to be really tough to think about the decisions. Thank you. It's good to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Exactly at this time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. If no one objects, maybe we can get through the resolutions, and then you can bring the departments that want to talk. Jenny, if you would come up, you do have 4 resolutions out of the 6. Oh, stay busy. You want to start with Ways and Means 1?
So it's a resolution to authorize the settlement of a matter of Kin Inc., Fools Inc. Versus the assessor of the town of Aurelius and the Board of Assessment Review for the town of Aurelius and the execution of the stipulation of settlement. So essentially, it's somebody that has gone through a tax certiorari proceeding regarding their assessment amount. I do believe that the settlement is fair, looking at the commercial sector versus residential and vacant properties. They're appreciating at a slower rate than those other sectors. So really this kind of is reflective of that valuation.
This passes, we just reduce their assessed value by 600,000.
Correct, and there are no refunds, so it would just be going forward.
Okay. I'd like to have her go all through all four and then we can get a
Okay.
motion for all four and open it up to questions.
So then WM4 is just a standard resolution, authorizing the county treasurer to pay mortgage tax. So we do this twice a year, once in May and then once in November. WM5 is authorizing the purchase of tax foreclosed property owned by Cayuga County. So this is allowing prior owners to repurchase the properties that we've just foreclosed on prior to going to auction. So there are 4 parcels that are in the resolution, 3 by one owner and 1 by another owner.
How long do they have
What do you mean by how long do they have?
to pay?
They've already paid the funds,
Oh,
the
okay.
amount of the back taxes, all that's being held in trust currently.
Okay.
If you approve this resolution,
Then they can go.
then we can transfer the property back to them. If you don't, then we would refund those funds to them.
Thank you.
And then WM6 is authorizing correction of tax error in the town of Sempronius. So the assessor didn't apply a nonprofit exemption that the person qualified for.
It's just, and that'll clean that up.
That will clean that up, yes, but it's over 2,500, so it does need your approval.
Okay, so I'd like to move WM1,
4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6.
Move it. Second.
Any other questions about those? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. WM2, Diane, this is a resolution looking to enter into a contract for consulting to conduct a compensation study of the Cayuga County non-bargaining full-time positions. And you have located money within your budget.
Correct. So I met with Lynn because of having an open position for quite a significant amount of time. There's enough savings in my salary line to pay for the study.
Okay, and this, again, when the original policy was written, there was reference to relooking at these salaries in 2024 and then every 4 years after.
Correct.
And that this is really just meeting the obligation to that policy.
Right.
We have questions about
I'm done with that.
Second.
Jonathan? Jim? I don't know, do you?
No, I thought we voted on this already or talked about this.
It did not pass.
Oh, it did not pass the last time. That's why.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember last month. No, I have no questions.
Okay, can
This is the same as last month's
It
discussion.
is.
Right.
I'm just gonna make a comment in that I think that the study is important in maintaining the integrity of the original policy created and sends a message to the non-bargaining employees that we are concerned about their well-being and their status as employees. And making all good due diligence in looking at what are the correct ranges as we look at counties.
And is it true, Diane, the results of this work will be brought back to the committee and then the committee can decide how any of the recommendations move forward and the timing of that?
Correct.
So it
Correct.
wouldn't be like, oh, there it is.
No, the idea would be that the information will be presented. And then I do this how best to implement that. And it can be spread out over time.
It's non-binding. It's up to
Oh,
us
yes.
to make the decision.
Correct.
Right,
Correct.
we don't, right.
There'll be recommendations to consider.
Mark?
Is this study mandated to be done by an outside agency?
No, but you get more of a neutral unbiased with them doing it, and they'll probably, more companies are more likely to share their information when a third party is doing it than giving those direct rates, because they'll compile everything. So when you get the information back, you're not knowing exactly what each individual is paying. So where if I collected it all, I would know exactly what that company pays their people. And instead, it will be like an average, you know, based on all the organizations that they get to participate in.
Diane, how long did they feel it would take to complete this work?
Originally, they were thinking between 2 to 3 months.
Okay, a pretty significant labor.
Right, because you'd have to put all the positions together, develop the survey, the questions that you're asking, then send it out.
Yeah.
Wait for them to respond back, then when they come back, do the analysis of all the information, put it together, and then make the recommendations on how best to
How do they find it?
present it and implement it.
How are they finding the comparables? It's not just geographics. I mean, I'm guessing they're looking for demographics as far as the
So-
size of the county, the number of
Correct.
employees, the tax base, et
They'll
cetera.
look at all
correct?
that, they'll look at key competitors, so
Yeah.
if we have information to share as to where we think people are leaving for other jobs, then maybe look at those too.
It's very curious, I guess, on,
No, we would be looking more at counties in similar size, similar budgets and like that.
All right, you moved it. Heidi, do we have a second? Did someone second this?
Heidi moved it, I seconded.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
I,
Okay, thank you, Diane. Ways and Means 3 is entering into an agreement with USI Insurance Services for the provision of health insurance consulting services. And I was the representative last year on the healthcare consortium. Ben is again back on, he did it in the past as well. And this resolution would just renew that agreement for the next 3 years at an annual salary of $15,000, so that USI would stay as our health insurance consultant. So can I get a motion for this resolution?
move it.
Second,
Second?
any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great, yeah. Now, Dave, if you have anything you want to share with the committee?
Yes, I'd like to talk to you for a second about the investment policy that was spoke of earlier. Obviously, we're very pleased the number is even higher than what we initially estimated. Ben, I think you remember a meeting, I told you it was going to be up a ton and you asked me how much a ton was. Well, I think we know now. I was guesstimating in the 500,000 range and it looks like it's going to be closer to 7. But I caution us all because that's been fantastic for us this last year because of a lot of different situations with the marketplace. Our financial people right now, the ones I'm talking with, the banks and the investment companies are saying they're projecting in a few months the interest rates dropping a little bit. So our huge gains might not be as huge going forward. Obviously, it's great what we've already garnered, but what we're going to do to prepare for those changes are we might go back to a little bit of a CD program to lock in some CDs at the higher rates. And then in case the money market funds, the class funds drop a little bit. So we'll be hedging ourselves a little bit along the way. And I'll keep you posted at future meetings as that happens or if the rates go down.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, but we're thrilled with the success of that program. It's really been a winner for us.
When you transition to the CDs, what kind of length do you do on them?
Well, what we're thinking about, depending upon the numbers at that time, but right now we're only thinking about in a year range because things are so volatile. If things change more significantly than that, we can look further, but I don't like to go out very far right now with the way the market is.
You also have to maintain our funds so we can operate when there's not revenue coming in.
Exactly. And believe it or not, we still have some funds that were locked up as far as 7, 8, 9 years ago that we're pulling out right now as they're finally coming due, so we can get them into class as well and start gaining some more of that interest. Also, I mentioned last meeting that I was working with Brian downstairs in the clerk's office and classes, I set up a meeting, class is going to come in and talk to them about the monies that they have on hand at any one time and to invest, to get him an account down there going so they can make some more money down there as well. And as Grace mentioned earlier, we've been very fortunate this last year because of the ARPA money and the other monies that we've been able to dump in there. It's been like a double whammy for us, so it's really worked out well for us.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grace or Jenny, do you have anything to add to your reports or questions?
I didn't know.
Oh,
if
you
wanted
wanted
me
to
go
talk
over-
about the budget, the passing of the budget on the tax foreclosure?
Yeah, did you want me to go over that?
Sure, I mean, yes, you did a spreadsheet.
I did.
I guess,
Kind of hit the
Yeah,
high points because there's a lot.
yes, didn't seem as painful to us as you were worried about. at
It's
all.
not that bad. It's actually a lot better than I thought it would end up being, so. But some of the main things is that there will be additional notice requirements and expanded notices. Some of the timeline will change. A lot of this, we're still working through internally, how we're gonna change our processes. But we're working treasurer's office, my office, and the attorney's office on all of that. Surplus for our auctions, the bid amount will be the amount that they're considering for surplus, so that's great.
Not an appraisal, you mean?
Right, so the one proposal was that we were gonna have to do appraisals for our
Mhm.
properties, which would have been crazy.
Mhm.
So now properties that either if we do it through negotiated sale or if it's retained for municipal purposes, those we can either obtain an appraisal for value, or we can look at the most recent tax roll and the full assessed value on that tax roll. So really it's gonna be situation by situation, looking at, if it's reasonable to look at what's on the tax roll, or if it would be better for us to actually go out for an appraisal. And then there are a lot of reporting requirements that we're trying right now to work through, creating a report to send to the state. So for our 2023 auction, we have 60 days from the passing of the budget to turn a report over to the state, along with, not to the state, I'm sorry, to the court. A report over to the court, along with the funds for the 2023 year. Then after each auction, we have 45 days to turn that report over to the courts.
We're in no way going to keep any excess amount of money, but we are getting more administrative support for the work we do.
So we can charge more. There were added categories for legal charges that we can claim against surplus. So that's a good thing for us as well. And we've been looking at applying those even to the 2023 auction amounts as well, so that when we're turning that over, we're getting as much back as we can. The court will be administering the actual claims for the surplus. So basically, once we turn it over to the courts, it's gonna be on them how they handle that. I know Fred's had some conversations with them. I think that they're still trying to figure that out as well. So I think this is all gonna be a work in progress, but certainly if you have any specific questions on anything that was asked in this, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to go into more depth about it, but I just kind of
Appreciate
wanted
the
to give you
thoroughness
that
of this, really.
high level and just let you know, it's not nearly as bad as the Senate version
The
was.
Senate bill that still shows pending in committee last I looked.
So it's essentially certain elements of it were incorporated into the actual budget.
So it's basically done.
Yes. Although, it could be revived, I'm sure, at some point, and they could come back with something else at some point with, other parts.
Last night, Cato passed the resolution out and passed the opposed the Senate bill and I.
Yeah,
I
that's-
thought this was dead.
I was gonna say that it's
Yeah.
beyond the point where they would do that.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
I left the meeting last night before we got to that one. I was gonna reach out to some.
They did take elements from that, but they left out the pieces that were
Really detrimental.
correct. So this we can work with.
Yes, good. Great.
Next.
Are you done with us, Grace?
Unless you have any questions on my report.
Okay. Any other questions for Grace before we move on to the next department? Okay. Diane, anything you want to add to your report, or I see you've included the current vacancy number, it's 28 now?
Yeah, it's gone down a little bit.
Yeah, it was 47 when we started hearing about it, so we are making some headway.
We are. It may go up a little bit next month only because some of those positions were filled, promotions and people internally related to other jobs.
Oh, gotcha, so, yeah,
So we might see a slight increase
okay.
going forward.
Amanda, do you have a good report? I just had one question for you. Working with operations officer and attorneys to create a contract policy, what are you referring to?
There's not currently a contract policy.
Like when they get written and signed, I mean.
Yeah, just a standard for how to complete a proper contract, and
Okay.
there's different types of contract, and it helps break that down. So
Like a
that-
template for certain kinds?
Yes, yeah, there's
Uh-huh.
boilerplates in there, but it also gives clear direction. So if you're a new department head and you're not familiar with contracts
Mhm.
and you're also maybe new to government and stuff, it helps direct them with what to do, the steps to take, and gives the county to have an actual standard for what they expect for contracts and management of contracts.
Okay. Anything, other questions for Amanda? All right, thank you. Okay, I do want to just get through HHS and we'll go around and.
Health and Human Services had 7 resolutions that passed unanimously. HH1. Authorizing the chair of the legislature and the public health director to enter into a multi-year agreement, 5 years, with New York State Department of Health to participate in youth tobacco enforcement and prevention programming and accept this 100% state funding. We need to.
You want to go, if you want to go through them, we can. Move them all at
I
once
can
and-
go, I
Yeah.
can go through them.
Or do you want to?
There's some I'm gonna elaborate
Okay.
on. HH2, I'm gonna do a little more elaboration. This is authorizing the public health director to create and fill a junior accountant position. This is essentially, we've done this before with other other departments. This is a title change from supervising billing specialist to junior accountant position. Same grade of 19, doesn't change. But this has gone through the personnel committee with the rationale that this job description more accurately describes the duties and also will help with recruitment of the actual position. This would occur in June when the current supervising billing specialist takes on a promotion.
So no different body
No
count.
difference, it's completely
Right.
budget neutral. And what would we do once the promotion occurs and the new person is in and onboarded, then the supervising billing specialist position would be abolished.
Can I get a motion for HH1 and 2? Second. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And the next one is a contract authorization authorizing the chair of the legislature, public health director, to enter into a 2-year contract with something we've been happily familiar with, the New York State Homes and Community Renewal Program, to participate in the Leading with Lead grant and accept funding associated with the grant from this month, May 2024 through March 2026.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
HH4, authorizing the chair of the legislature and the Commission of Social Services to renew a contract with the Rescue Mission for Homeless Family and Transitional Housing. This has been a contract we have had for several years and has our Department of Social Services is very happy with this. It certainly is helping with our unhoused population to receive case management and move into transitional housing.
Yep.
From
I'll move that.
homelessness.
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
Then HH5, 6, and 7 are all traditional fills. HH5, filling a coding and billing specialist in mental health. HH6, a vacant senior clerk in mental health. And then HH5, while it looks like a create, this is what we've become familiar with, using the HELP program, the HELP program through the state, which allows us to bring in a currently budgeted social worker, bring them in without taking the civil service exam.
Moved all three of them.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.
How you doing? Thank you for filling in for me. We have 6 resolutions. One is tabled, one is pulled, and one amendment. GO1 is authorizing the decrease in salary of the deputy county clerk 2 within the county clerk's office. I get a motion
I'll
on
move the
that.
amended.
Second.
Favor?
Aye, and the amendment is the abolishment of
Yeah, the
an unfair
right,
position.
yeah.
Yep, that was budgeted.
All right, GO2 is fixing the day notice of public hearing on local law authorization to sell county property located at Beach Street Road Park. The map. Boom.
Second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
GO3 has been pulled. GO4 authorizing the chair of the legislature and information operating through the grant of New York State Division of Homeland Security Emergency Services.
I'll move it.
Yes, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, GO5 has been tabled. And GO6 is the fixing the date. Can I look for this?
No, we've got 2.
Okay, fixing the day of public notice of local law for the year 2024, local law amendment, the local law number 4, 22, local law of authorized video conferencing of public hearing to continue to authorization video conference for a public meeting for 2 years until July 1st, 2026.
Move it.
Okay, this was to expire and now it's just continuing on the availability of video conferencing, right?
That's
This one expired, okay.
There's
Yeah, I
a few
do.
changes to it, but yeah.
Is there? In terms of
There is.
in person and,
It's pretty much consistent with the one that exists now. It's just the state authorized an extension for 2 years, so the county needs to pass a local law to extend it.
I just had a question about whether, in our local law, are we going to, put in some micro provisions around the ability for legislators to meet remotely would be based on illness or being out of town? Because we had done that before.
If you're asking me, I have no clue. If you have some friends.
You mean,
Just asking.
There was
meet
some-
remotely for, I'm sorry.
there were some provisions in what Heidi's referring to that you had to get, there had to be a valid
Permission of-
reason for not to come in person.
Yeah.
And is that still in
Is that
force?
still in-
Still is in-
Thank you.
Okay, planning and public works?
We gotta move, vote on that last.
Oh, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
I
appreciate
can
it.
go now.
I'm glad you can.
Planning and Public Works had 4 resolutions. PPW1 is being pulled today because needs to be updated before the ledge meeting, but I think it will be coming before the ledge.
That's correct. We need to make some updates based on some discussions we had this morning. So we've asked that it be pulled and we'll submit something new.
So look for that next week.
Thank you.
PPW 2, 3, and 4. They've all been through committee, and all of them are basically normal resolutions. And I would put all 4, 2, 3, and 4 up as bundle.
I'll move it as a bundle. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, sorry,
2, 3, and 4.
I'll second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Lastly, judicial and public safety.
Thank you. A bundle one based upon departments So, but I will, we're gonna bundle JP one through JP three together. JP one involves assigned counsel, signing a contract with New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services. JP two, grant money, from Homeland Security, technology of Cayuga County Hazardous Materials Team. And three is also accepting grant money, as well for the Cayuga County Hazardous Materials Team.
Move JP 1, 2, and 3.
Nightingale second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Sheriff's Office is JP four, JP five, and JP six. I'm gonna bundle them as well. JP four is just a update and a contract for the SRO program, East Fort Central School District. To provide an SRO, and this is at no cost to the county. This is provide the being reimbursed by the school district. JP five is to authorize the filling of one licensed practical nurse, and that being the jail. And JP six has to do with an increase in the hourly rate for peer support for next riders, provides drug and alcohol counseling within the facility.
Nightingale move as a bundle, JP four, JP five, and JP six.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
JP seven through nine are for Stop WI. This is a program that's completely funded through fines and state dollars. And so JP seven authorizes the DWI coordinator and the sheriff to enter an agreement with the Auburn Double Days for the 24 season program. JP eight authorizes the chair to enter an agreement with the police department, Auburn Police Department, Sheriff's Office, probation, and the district attorney's office for budget appropriations for a term of 3 years regarding the Stop BWI funds, and authorize JP nine authorizes annual appropriations for Cayuga County Schools after prom event for the academic year of 23 to 24. That one should have been done earlier, but funding was still provided, and this is just reimbursing that at this point. And we will be able to, this will be on the agenda next year earlier. So that's JP 7, 8, 9.
Nightingale move that. As a bundle.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Last but not least, we have a late addition. It's JP 10. This was added as of today, at my request after speaking with Hailey and Elaine. This has to do with a home accepting money for Homeland Security. Side that we just need to accept for, that's being used for a conference for next month. So.
Move JP ten.
So Riley can accept these funds
So we
and
can
then
accept the
start
funds and.
paying the bills that he
Part
wants.
paying the bills
Yeah.
from the PO and.
Yeah, he might have missed that, he
Money
said,
around,
but
yeah.
yes, all right,
Yeah.
first, you, second.
I seconded, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Just have a comment before we leave the additional public safety. I voted in favor of 7, 8, and 9, but I do have some reservations when it comes to the Stop BWI program. I think it hurts a lot of young people sometimes that really don't deserve it. And
In terms of the focused attention on making the stops.
making the arrest. We focus in the state on generating revenue. And sometimes it's at the cost of good people's lives. That's all I want to say.
Yep. I did think some of the money was on prevention and awareness and.
I think some of the funds are for prevention awareness. The program
That's
is,
why I voted in favor.
Right.
I'm just,
Yep.
to Ben's point, the program is funded wholly through the fine money. Which
Gotcha,
comes from
gotcha.
making arrests or writing
Yep.
tickets, so.
I understand, so the more that is, the more
The
funding the
more
program
funding is
is.
available.
motion to go into executive session, I believe.
For contract discussions,
I believe so.
all right, can I get a second for executive session?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right,
Good.
Then I have to use the lady.
Elaine, just make sure to come back in to adjourn, okay?
Yes, that we'll come back in and, yep.
Gonna wait?
That's
That's what that was about.
Adjourned.
I'll move
See?
that we adjourn.
Second, so I'm giving you that face because I'm like, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah.